Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk Elephants. I'm your host, Destiny Farley, and my guest today is Michael Richter, who is an up-and-coming musician here in Las Vegas. He's been a solo artist for the last few years, but he recently added a few band members to the mix, and they're doing some pretty cool things here in the city. For example, about a week and a half ago, Michael and his band finished in the top 5 as finalists in the Life is Beautiful Rising Stars competition, which is basically a competition to perform on a stage at Life is Beautiful, and it had over 180 submissions this year. So to finish in the top 5 is actually pretty insane. I'll have all their information linked for you guys in my social media if you want to check them out. But Michael's passion for music is actually a smaller part of why I asked him to come on the show today. When Michael was 15 years old, his mom, Wendy, was murdered by his stepdad in what he describes as a crime of passion in a toxic relationship. To experience this at any age is devastating, but especially to experience this at 15 years old when you're still finding your bearings in the world and figuring out who you are and how the world works. So the fact that Michael was able to take this pain from this traumatic experience and channel it in a creative way is something that's incredibly inspiring and few people are able to do, and I really admire. So Michael, if you don't mind, could you just briefly introduce yourself and then start by sharing with me what your relationship with your mom was like growing up?
So my name is Michael. I'm from Vegas, or Henderson, and love to do music. It's cool. I'm having a great time. Like, things are going really well, and I'm really stoked about the progress. But as far as growing up with my mom, it was a interesting thing. We started off kind of rocky at the beginning when my parents separated, and I was like kind of a bad kid with my mom, and at my dad's I was like not that person at all. So we kind of butt heads for a long time, but eventually, like towards the end of everything, we got to a really great place. So I'm pretty thankful for that.
Mm-hmm. So do you remember when there was a certain point where you felt like things started to get rocky with your mom, or do you feel like was it in your teenage years, or is it as early as you can remember?
So like in elementary school, she moved away because she got married. She moved to San Diego, and she was like, I'll come back every weekend. And I think I saw her twice.
Okay.
So it was like that mistrust and like abandonment that started to happen like at that age. I think I was in second grade. So like That's where I was like, then I would like cry every single night because I wanted my mom to come home, and like my parents or my dad and my stepmom had to deal with that like every night before I went to bed. It was like this shit show of like me freaking out.
So you guys were close when you were young, like before, like pre-second grade, you remember being close with her, I'm assuming.
Or, like, yeah, I mean, as you know, as close as you are when you're a kid, you're just,
you want your mom.
Yeah.
And then I can see how that's kind of complicated because, she goes and gets married. And as a child, you don't know any better. So you believe them when they say, oh, I'm going to come back and see you. Mm-hmm. And then to have that sort of disappointment that early on is really challenging and kind of makes you not trust people.
Yeah, you're like,
from a young age.
I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah. So she moved to San Diego in second grade, so was she not around for a while?
I forget exactly how long she was gone for. I think it was like a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And then at some point in time, she had come back after we had not talked to her for a while and was like, oh, I'll be moving back like very soon. And then I didn't hear from her for 6 months, like after that, or
at all.
Yeah, like at all. And we weren't even sure, what was going on.
Mm-hmm. And how old were you at this point?
Like probably that second, third grade age.
Oh, still.
That was like right.
Ballpark.
Yeah, ballpark.
Okay.
And then that was just like, that was when it got really bad for me, and like, the crying every night and the like very upset, like I miss my mom, I want my mom, and like just not the distrust with her.
Do you know like where she was during that time? Or?
This is when things like...
Just move this in front of you real quick.
So she eventually told me later when she got back. So like she ended up coming back and like having to go to rehab and all this stuff. And when I was, I think 12 or 13, she told me like everything about when she was gone. And like, I probably shouldn't have known everything at like, I think I might have been even like 11, 12. Like this was like middle school, like 6th grade. So, she had told me everything. And they were on drugs, and like, she's like, I've done every single drug there is.
At 11 years old?
Yeah, yep. At 11 years old. And just like all the stuff she's done. But it wasn't like, bragging or like this or that. It's just like, I wanted answers because it's like, what? Like, I held it against her for a long time. Like, even when she didn't answer the phone, it's like, oh, here we go again. And it's like, it could be like a Tuesday or whatever, and it's nothing. But because she doesn't answer, I'm like used to being like, oh, of course, this is where it's going to go. So, but where was I?
In that 6-month period,
so
she was
she was in San Diego, and she was on drugs. But the worst part of it was she thinks, this is like her theory of what was going on. She would go to sleep and then wake up in a different place in like different clothes.
Oh, wow.
And so she thinks some like crazy shit was happening, like where like somebody was like selling her body or like some crazy shit. And so
like trafficking.
Yeah. And her whole thing was like, I was doing the drugs to stay awake, because if I didn't, things would get weird on me. And so like, you can take that as you will, because it's also like she was on drugs. But I do believe her when she said that stuff. Like, I can't imagine feeling that way and being like feeling stuck in that. But that was a lot for me at 12 or 11 to be like, all right, gotta go do accelerated math 7 or something.
Right,
like,
after hearing that.
After hearing that.
So it sounds like she was involved with some sketchy people. Yeah,
and I think, her husband was like doing this to her.
Oh, she was married.
Yeah, she was married at this time. Yeah, so so
like,
this
is your stepdad.
Yeah,
Okay.
But I didn't even really know him. But the thing is like my mom, she worked at a lawyer's office, and she met all her boyfriends there.
So she's just homie helper?
Yeah, or it's like they're criminals. So like, and they're already in trouble with the law.
I thought like you're talking about lawyers.
No,
it's the other end.
It's the other end.
Oh, that's funny.
And like, it's like, come on, Mom.
Yeah. So she had a history of toxic relationships then, or was he like was he the first one?
I think he was probably, I don't know much about her and my dad, but I think he was probably the first terrible.
Right.
Like, just something that went really bad, like super sour.
So when did they move back and start like being more a part of your life on a daily basis?
She got away from him and lived with her sister for a while, and then I remember my dad taking me. We were at the grocery store or something, and like just getting stuff, and he was like, "Well, your mom's coming back," and I was like, and he was like, "She has to go live in a home, and like which is rehab, and you'll be able to see her soon." So, and I had like a Mother's Day gift that I had like kept for the longest time that I wanted to give to her. So like I was getting that ready, and then I just remember like seeing her for the first time was just like incredible. You're just like, I didn't think I would see you. So she feels like this like distant character. So like I just remember like running up to her and hugging her and just being like so excited that she was here.
Mm-hmm. So the person that she was married to in San Diego is not the same person that ended up. Okay, that's a separate.
That's a whole separate thing.
Okay, that's what I meant. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a whole separate thing, and like so we had at that point when she like gets into rehab. It's like now we're starting fresh from like that. So we're trying to build a relationship now that has been gone and really badly tarnished and like,
yeah. So after did she finish rehab?
Yes.
And after that, was your relationship with her better?
So she was still like kind of aloof a little bit. Like I would call and she wouldn't call me back. And like there was these issues, and I was really mean to her when I would go see her. Because it's like, this is not getting fixed. Yeah, there's lots of resentment. And it took a lot of that to happening to like eventually start to fix things. And like there was things where she wouldn't go to my baseball games or like this or that, and like she can come to this one and not this one. It was always like some sort of reason, or like, but like my dad and stepmom were at everything, so it's like, why can't you just? She didn't work that much. It was like you have a 9 to 5, so like show up.
Mm-hmm. So when did she meet your stepdad that ended up abusing
this is
her?
Probably puts me in like I think 8th grade. So she had, a couple boyfriends in between, but then she met him, and he was like this wealthy like fisherman guy. He like was an engineer on a boat, and so he'd be gone for a few months like on the boat, and then would come back. And so like they would like message each other, and that's how they kind of stayed in contact. And things were like really great at first. Like he was like taking care of stuff. He like paid for some of my braces. It's like he didn't have to do that.
Really?
Yeah.
What was his name?
Wade.
Wade. I'm going to refer to him as Wade so I don't get him mixed up with.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had a decent relationship with him then compared to the other people?
I thought he was great. Like, really thought he was great. Treated my mom nice. He found out he knew about all the other shit, and like was like appalled that guys would treat her that way. And like, you know what I mean? Like, total stand-up guy. Tried really hard to get people to like him. Yeah.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
You just never know.
No, yeah.
So did you know of any abuse that was going on? Like, did it start to become apparent? Was there signs of domestic abuse?
So, like we lived in this house by my high school, Foothill, and everything was good when we lived there. And then something happened, and I'm not quite sure what, but we ended up moving to this other house, and like, meanwhile, he's a drinker, drinks a lot, like one of those people that had like gum or like garlic in their car so that they could chew on it so it doesn't seem like they're drinking if they get pulled over. But I think just that kept going, and then he like ended up pushing his captain down the stairs or something like that at like a work party.
Because he was drunk? Yeah,
and they got in some sort of tiff, and like he did something like that he shouldn't have at work, and then like that's when it like completely started to spiral, and he started like lying a lot, and like
lying about
just whatever to my mom, and then like I don't remember a ton of the details, like, but I just remember it getting really bad. And then we moved into this other house, and he was like, yeah, my kids are gonna move in, and they didn't move in.
So he had kids from a separate...
Yeah, he had older kids. I actually went to high school with his daughter.
So they're around your age?
Mm-hmm. She's like a couple years older than me.
Okay. And did you have much of a relationship with them?
Not really. I would see them, Christmas.
But you lived with your mom and Wade?
Yeah, when I was with them, yeah. So like back and forth. And
was there a lot of fighting or yelling?
It like definitely started to ramp up when we moved to this other house. And I think I've blocked a lot of it out, like just detail wise.
Yeah, I get that.
But there was one night at that house where he like tried to tell me my mom commit suicide, and I was trying to commit suicide, and he like stopped it, and like it was this traumatic thing. We're like yelling back at each other, and I was like, no, like I don't want to talk about this with you. This is my mom's like story to tell, not yours. So like stop, like, and we were just yelling at each other like, I want to talk to my mom. And then he like hit me in the face, and I went to the floor, and I was mostly in shock. I think I just went to the floor because I was in shock that I got hit. I don't think he hit me like extremely hard.
I mean, if you landed on the floor.
Yeah, no, it was. I don't remember it hurting. There was just so much adrenaline going on, and I don't think I had a bruise the next day. It wasn't like bad, but like still he hit me,
which is still not okay.
Still not okay.
And you're how old at this time?
I am, I think 15, 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he's hitting a child.
Yeah, he's hitting a child in the face. And my mom was between us trying to stop it. And then he ran out, and I got up, and I was like, I'm going to call the cops right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I slammed the door and start calling the cops. My mom comes back down to check on me, so I let her in, and then I'm up against the door, and he's trying to come through the door, and I don't know how I was able to block a grown man like coming through this door. I have no idea, but I was able to do it, and I'm on the phone with the police, and my mom's like, hey, like, he's calling the cops, so just so you know, he's on the phone with the cops right now.
She's saying this while
to
he's
him.
on the other side.
Yeah, to the door.
Which probably doesn't help if he's trying to bust down the door already.
No, but he ends up leaving because cops are on the way.
Okay.
And I think he's really drunk at this point in time.
Yeah.
And then I called my dad after the cops left, or I don't even remember when, but the cops did nothing. They were like good cop, bad copying me and my mom, and it was just like...
That's really frustrating.
Yeah, it wasn't like, there was no... I didn't feel like, oh, I should have called it. Like, it was better that I called them just so I could have de-escalated the situation, but they didn't do much.
And did they take a report?
I think they did, yeah. And they were kind of on the lookout for him because we said that he'd been drinking and he left and stuff, and it was just kind of...
So this had to be around the time where shortly before he did what he did, right?
This is probably like 9 months before.
Right. So
6 months before.
There's these signs that are popping up.
That it's getting worse.
Right. That weren't there before.
And after that happened, I, talked to my mom about it, and he had like shot a gun in the house, and like she showed me like where he had like shot at her or like near her or like, I don't know, just like bad.
So yeah, this is the pieces are starting to come.
Yeah,
together.
This is totally the foreshadowing of like this is getting worse.
Right.
And so I refused to talk to him or like see him after he hit me until he like was going to like either quit drinking. I needed a real like man-to-man apology of like, that's not cool. And like, because I get it, it's shit happens. Like, life isn't always perfect and people fuck up. But, in this case, I wish I would have not, I wish I would have not accepted it. But He ended up saying he was going to quit drinking, and I think he quit for a few months, and he wasn't able to, because he lost his job because he like pushed that captain down.
Okay. So he's unemployed at this point too.
Yeah. And I remember waking up, this is at the house where he hit me. I remember waking up and he was on the phone with somebody from like Seattle that he used to work with. He's like, yeah, I work for the gas company now, and I have a company, and it's all a lie. Like,
just
it's all a lie. And I was like, when you wake up and you just like, and you're a kid and it's like summertime or something, and like he was just talking, and I'm like, he didn't know I was awake, but I was like listening to him talk about like, you have a work truck and I take my dog out, and like he was like totally buttering it up, and I was like, what?
Yeah. I mean, these are like glaring signs of alcoholism and like a downward spiral, especially him losing his job. Like, I'm sure that there's statistics and research on if you were to look at, the trajectory of alcoholism, because it's not good no matter when you start looking at it, but especially if someone becomes unemployed, then, that's a huge sense of self-worth that is just gone. And so when you tell me that he's unemployed, he has a drinking problem, he's becoming physically and verbally abusive, like I imagine that there was probably abuse going on that you didn't know about.
That I didn't know about, I'm sure.
Were you there every single night? Or?
No, I was between there and my dad's house.
Oh, that's right.
I was like cool. My dad was cool with me doing whatever I wanted to do. Like, there was never like a custody issue.
Mm-hmm. Even though he knew what was going on.
Well, like at that point, it was different. That changed things.
Okay.
That definitely changed things.
Right.
And there was like this, like, I would only go over there if he wasn't there, or if he was out of town trying to get, like, he was supposed to try to get a new job. And so I would see my mom here and there, like, kind of after that.
So your mom stayed with him after he hit you.
Mm-hmm.
And was there a strain on yours and your mom's relationship because you didn't want her to be with him, or like how did she handle that?
So it was almost like we're trauma bonded against this guy at this point, and like we were very close at this point.
Okay.
she was like honestly doing great things, like helping me with projects, doing the mom stuff. Like this is where it was terrible. Those circumstances were terrible, but during this time, me and my mom got really close. She taught me how to play guitar, just like super close. And you know, doing the music thing, we would sit on the porch and she would play music and I'd play music, and just very chill, like great mother son stuff that never really happened until this point.
Yeah.
And so it was really great to be able to have that, you know? So it's like, I'm going to put up with whatever it is so I can have that with my mom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wasn't going to be another point of contention like in her life.
Right.
I don't think, you know?
Yeah. Because you already felt like you missed out on her so much that it wasn't worth the risk of losing her again.
And at this point, I've been like chasing her my whole life.
Yeah.
Like trying to get a relationship.
Which you shouldn't have to do.
No, not with your mom.
That's really sad. So can you sort of, I mean, so that's unfortunate because basically you're building this relationship with her that you always wanted. Things are looking up. You're feeling good about it. Everything else that's going on aside. So can you walk me through what happened on the day that it happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before that, there's like another little part of the story.
Okay, go ahead.
So we end up moving into this other house. This is the house that happened in. And he's not drinking for a while, and it's good. I'll go there, take the bus to school, and it was good for a minute. He had apologized to my dad.
Okay.
Like came over to my parents' house, my dad's house, and like was like, you know, this is unacceptable. And because like he thought my dad was hiding in bushes. Like he was really scared. Yeah, because my dad was
I could
not.
See your dad being crazy.
He was not okay with it. So like he had to like, you know, get that dealt with, and so we end up. So we're at that house. It's good, and then he ends up. Oh, I'm just gonna have a beer. You know, I can have a beer now, and it's like that's how it starts.
That's how it starts.
Oh, I can have 2 beers, whatever. And so I didn't necessarily know what was going on, but a part of me is like, he messed up, like, because we have a good track record other than the weird thing that had happened months later. So like he actually like it took it, and then it came back a little bit, and he was himself, and then he had I don't remember what his job was, but it was like a low-paying job that like he was overqualified for, and I just kept drinking. Like the drinking started again, and there was this fight that his son was over, and I was there, and the fighting started, and like I just remember him screaming at my mom like, "I'll kill you, bitch." Like in front of me, in front of his son. And then that's when his son like interviewed and was like, no. Like, no. Like totally shut it down. Mm-hmm. And they were like teetering on getting a divorce or not getting a divorce. And I was like livid. I was like, I wanted to hurt this man.
Right. Well, understandably.
And he was like, do you really want to go back to like living in an apartment with your mom where your bed's on the floor, and like totally like talking down to her because she didn't make as much money as him. And it was just like all this out of pocket shit that I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Like I gotta get out of here. So they end up leaving, and they're like, we're going to sign divorce papers. That was the whole thing. They left. They were gone for a few hours, and
that's the reason why they left. They were doing it like, in that moment.
That's what they said.
Okay.
So I'm like, cool, and I'm at the house, but like, still like, he had just said, "I'll kill you" to my mom, like in front of me, and like, just not okay. Like I was so like mad.
Right.
I actually like walked around the house with a gun because I wanted to kill him.
Yeah. Like
totally.
How did you have a gun at 15 years old?
Because they didn't keep anything locked up or anything.
Okay.
I knew everything was. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, I want to kill this guy. Like, just totally like
Rage.
totally enraged. And
red.
like they were gone for a few hours, and it was like enough for me to like, I'm a little crazy. I don't need to do this. So I put it down and I was like, wow, that's insane that I was even at that point in my head.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've like told a ton of people that. So
well, now you have.
Now I have.
Well, not a ton of people, but
more than before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just like, that was tough.
I feel like that's a natural response though, as a son, you know, like I know plenty of people and they would do the same thing if it was their mom. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's primal, you know, which we've talked about this. You have a natural, like this relationship with your mom, especially, there's a unique relationship there with like a mother-son dynamic, and you're hitting that point where you feel like, okay, maybe it's my turn to protect her now, which it's different because, you know, she wasn't around for a big part of your childhood, but still, like, it's your mom, and you...
Well, things are great, you know? It's like, I feel like I'm protecting what that is.
Right.
You know, what we've created.
Right. So I don't think you're crazy for that. I mean, I would probably do that if it was my mom.
Yeah.
You know?
It's just, not okay.
Yeah.
Not okay at all.
So they left, and then when did they come back? What happened?
I think they ended up just going to a bar. And so when they came back, I think that's when more fighting happened. And then when he said all the demeaning stuff to me, and my mom was like, I'm going to take you home. So she took me home. And then from that point on, I was at the point where it's like, I will not be around if he's around. Like, straight up, like I can't deal with it. And I think the reason she didn't want to leave is because she didn't want to be like a third time divorced woman, and like, and that's what she told my stepmom Kylie, because they went on a walk the night before everything happened.
Really? Mm-hmm. Really? Do you know what was said?
To the point of like, she didn't want to be this third divorced woman, and she's embarrassed, and just feeling shameful of another thing that's not working out. Mm-hmm. And like a week before, I think I was we were like looking at apartments or like houses or where she could move to, and she's like, he's just gonna find me. Like, I can't get out of this.
This is domestic abuse.
Oh,
like,
straight up.
100%.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even though there may not have been physical evidence on her regularly of, you know, like bruises or cuts or whatever it may be, like, this is textbook definition of domestic abuse. So do you feel like you could recognize this in another relationship now that you've seen it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least you have that. You know what I mean, you can see what is toxic and what you don't want to repeat.
Oh, 100%.
So she felt trapped, basically.
She felt trapped in it. Yeah. And she knew he was violent, you know? And so that led to like her telling me, you know, if something happens to me, I know you'll be all right. And that was like just one of those things you don't want to hear from your mom. Yeah.
So you talk about this in one of your songs.
Yeah.
In 2014. Mm-hmm. And you say that she said, oh, I know you'll be all right when I'm gone. She said it like that, or like what?
But like, it was just one of the, I don't know. We had like deeper conversations just about stuff like that all the time, just because of, you know, the gravity of everything that was going on. But it was basically to that effect of like, you know, if she died or like this or that, like she knows that she had trust in me that I would figure it out. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the gist of the conversation.
Which is really hard to hear.
Which is super hard to hear.
Did that worry you when you heard that?
Yeah, I was very worried. This whole thing, I was stressed. I was not sleeping well. Like through these like 6 months, I didn't sleep great. I was like, it was bad. Like it was just not a good time.
Were other people around you concerned as well?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who around you had an opinion on it? Like,
just definitely like my dad and my stepmom and my grandma. And so I guess
what was their opinion on it? Like, what did they
definitely wanted her out.
Right.
Of that.
And there's not a lot you can do when it's
they
somebody
have to make
else's,
that choice
for
themselves. And there was definitely a couple times she slept on my dad's couch trying to get away from it. And so leading to like the day of, I had called her. So like the Thursday, I think she went on a walk with my stepmom Kai, and then Friday, I had called her after school and was like, "Hey, what's going on? What's happening this weekend? Like, I want to see you." And she's like, "Wade might come into town, might not. I don't really know. He should be doing this in Seattle." I don't remember what it was. It was like either like trying to get a new job or like it could have even been like a rehab or something that I just wasn't privy to the knowledge of.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, if he's coming and if he comes back into town, it's just because he wants to be an asshole. Like, but I'll let you know. And then it was like, okay, well, I'll talk to you later. And then, love you, bye. And then I went to my friend's house, and this is kind of silly, but I broke his ping pong table that day, and it like fell and totally broke. And I felt really bad. But so I ended up calling her. Then I walked to my grandma's because I was close. My grandma's taking me back to my house, and it was like 4:30 or almost 5, 'cause she would get off at 5. So I called her and I was like, gonna tell her, oh, if he's coming back, like, you don't need to stay home. Like, you can go anywhere. And she didn't answer.
This is the day of.
Yeah. So, and she didn't answer. But hadn't happened yet.
Okay.
So I don't know where she was at that time, because her boss later said she got off work early, and that was at 4 p.m. instead of 5.
Okay. So
I imagine she was just like in a casino or gambling because she liked to gamble, and I don't know where she was. So then, the rest of the night goes on or whatever, and I had a guitar lesson performance thing the next day that in the evening that she was supposed to come to. And so my guitar lessons were actually like down the street from my dad's house, so I would walk there. So I'm walking, and like I had this really weird thought that he killed her. Like,
really
weird. Like,
mm-hmm.
And then I was like, what if he killed her and then he's going to come kill me too? Or like, it was, and then I was like, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That's nuts. That couldn't happen. And I just put it away. Was at the guitar studio most of the day. I had texted her. I had called her. Nothing. It was going right to voicemail. And so that's when a friend of mine that lived across the street from my mom texted me and was like, hey, there's a bunch of cop cars like outside your mom's house.
Oh my gosh, I got goosebumps.
And I was like, well, that's not good. First of all, because previously, when I called the cops for a domestic dispute, they didn't park in front of our house.
Yeah.
They park to the next.
Oh, yeah.
They park next door because they don't want to alert if there's like, they don't make their presence known. So I'm like,
yeah.
And so actually, I skipped this part of the story too, which I thought he killed himself immediately because my mom had saved him already. Like in this house we lived in previously, she came home on a lunch break and he was like passed out, had taken a bunch of pills, and she called an ambulance and saved him. So I was like, maybe he killed himself. That was my initial thing. Mm-hmm. And like, she's just not answering. And so then I called my dad. I'm like, hey, or my dad didn't answer. I called Kai. She was out for a walk. And I was like, hey, my mom's not answering. And Jess said that there's cops outside her house. Like, could you call dad or go check or whatever? And so then it's like an hour and a half and I haven't heard from anyone.
Oh, God. Where are you at this point?
I'm about to perform.
Oh, you're at your guitar thing.
I had a guitar thing. And I'm like pacing around the place. Like, we're supposed to go on at like 6:30, and we're just playing at the studio, and parents were supposed to come. It was like nothing super major. And then my dad walks in, and there's like a window that's like head level so parents can watch, the lessons or whatever, and he's just bawling. And I'm like, oh no. So like he was like motioning me to come outside, so I walked outside, and he just hugged me, and he's like, he killed her.
He said it just like that?
Mm-hmm. And
oh my God,
I thought he was crying so hard that I thought it was a joke.
Right.
Like, I was like, no, like, what? Like,
yeah.
I almost couldn't understand him.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And it was like, you know, and then we just like hugged for like, you know, what felt like forever outside the place, the guitar studio place. And then we went home.
Were you emotional too?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
I was
a mess.
I was a mess, and it, you know, just doesn't set in.
Right. It doesn't feel real.
It doesn't feel real. But the air is heavy. Like you're like
right. You're like waiting to wake up.
Waiting to wake up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then it was like me calling my friends and telling them that night. It was like that kind of stuff, and like we just all sat around, just like, holy shit.
You didn't go back to the house, I assume, because it's a crime scene?
No, yeah, at this point it's a crime scene. And like my parents wouldn't have let me go down there at all to see whatever happened. And his daughter actually found him. So
he had killed himself as well at this point?
Yeah.
And this was by a gun for both of them?
No, he drank a bunch and did a bunch of pills.
Okay, but he had shot her.
He had shot her, yeah.
Oh my gosh. And so where did you go from your performance to
my dad's house? Yeah.
And so what did the rest of the night look like? You're just, I don't even know.
Just like kind of like, I cried a lot, and then it was like you get to the point where you're like, I can't cry anymore. Like there's no more tears. Like that's it.
Right.
And that's when it was like I called my friends, and somebody had to, I think, I don't remember a ton of this, but I think somebody had to go down there and talk to the detective, and there was just different things, and I ended up just being like asking my friend to get on PlayStation. I was like, what am I supposed to do? Like, let's play some video games.
Yeah.
I don't even think we played anything.
Yeah.
I think we just like kind of sat in a chat and like talked.
Yeah, that's actually insane. My brain can't, I don't even want to try to process it, because you don't want to put yourself in the headspace to try and imagine something like that happening to you, because it's so horrible and traumatic. But I know what you're describing, because I've felt it. You know, what you went through is unique. I can't say I've ever been through anything like that, you know, but I've experienced loss and grief, and it's like there's something that is just indescribable about it, right? Like there's not words that accurately depict what that feeling is like and how heavy it is in your chest and in your body. And it's like when you're crying heavy like that and you're thinking about it and you're processing it, there naturally comes a point where, like, if it's like a graph, right? You're peaking, and then at some point you come down for a second, right? And then it hits you again because it doesn't feel real.
No.
And especially, like, it's so hard to sleep, because you go to sleep and like the pain is gone, right? Like, because you're not conscious, you're not processing it, unless you're having like nightmares about it and stuff, which happens. But for the most part, you're unconscious, and that's the only break you get from the grief.
From feeling it, yeah. Yeah. When I slept that night, amazing.
Yeah.
I slept like the best I'd slept in weeks.
Right.
And it was,
your body's tired.
And I think it was I was tired, but it was one of those things too, like it was done.
Yeah.
Like the saga, the pain, the hurt, the what am I going to do? It's done. Yeah. Like it's all done.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
It's concluded. Like,
right.
And like, I know that's just, you know, that's kind of cold a little bit. But
well, no, but that's why it's interesting, because it's like you are in constant pain. So it's like getting little doses of pain for the rest of your life, or getting all this all at once, and knowing you're never going to feel that same type of pain.
It's just
again.
Different now.
Yeah, it's like it's not even the lesser of two evils, because that situation is obviously worse that she's not here, but it's like a double-edged sword. You know what I mean? So I understand what you're saying, but that feeling of, you know, sleeping good is great, but sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night and it hits you like a fucking truck.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, like I want to wake up, but I just woke up. So it's like you're waking up into the nightmare, and it's so like hard to think about how am I going to overcome this, because at least when I'm in that headspace, the only thing I'm thinking about is I have to do this for so many more days before I feel okay. Like there's going to be so many things that I have to, which is not a good way to look at grief. It makes it so much harder.
No, it feels like this tremendous weight of like, I have to do this without this person.
Right.
And like, it's terrible. Like it was like.
Yeah. I remember when my grandpa was in the hospital, there was like this specific moment that I had where, because like you're in the hospital and what's happening, but again, it's like that thing that like doesn't really feel real, like you're not fully processing it. And so I had this moment, because we had been seeing him for like 3 or 4 days, and I had this moment where I was home and it hit me, and I was like, I'm never going to talk to him again. Like he was nonverbal. He was still alive, but he was nonverbal at this point. And I just like, it was so heavy. Like I was crying so hard. Like I was like yelling, because I was just like, I don't understand how the world works like this. Like I don't understand why it's possible or allowed or whatever you want to call it for me to experience this right now, because I just had this person every day for my entire life.
Yeah.
And they had an entire personality, and we have all these memories in this relationship together. How am I never going to talk to him again? Like, and you can get spiritual about it. Oh, you will talk to him again. And I believe that. And I still talk to him now, but I mean, like, I'm never going to get to sit down next to him
and experience him
in this form and have a conversation with him again. And that, like, it just killed me. And I was like, I just don't even know what to do with myself right now. Like, my entire being, the way that I'm existing right now is just pain. Like, I am just visual pain right now.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, after he passed away, that's not even when I cried the hardest, because it was more like the realization that he was gone before he was gone. And then when I got the call at like, I want to say 5 a.m. or 6 a.m., and my mom had told me your grandpa passed away, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to sleep. And I went back to sleep and had some weird dreams, but that wasn't even the hardest part, But I remember it hits you in stages and in waves, because I remember being in my room like a few days after, and I saw this quote on TikTok, and it was like, now I'm going to have to remember you for longer than I've known you.
Yeah, wow.
And that fucked me up, because I was 22 years old, and I'm like, all I've ever known my whole life is having my grandpa. And how much longer am I going to live my life? And now this person will not be here with me. And then I spiral. Like, I'm not great at coping. So then you spiral, and you're like, I was mad. I was like talking out loud to him, like, what am I supposed to do with that, Grandpa?
Yeah.
Like, now that I just saw that, like, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, how am I supposed to go on? And I felt like I was going to give myself a panic attack. And then I felt like, I won't get into it, but I felt like he gave me a sign. And that's when it was like very obvious to me. And I was like, oh, that was kind of weird.
Yeah.
And then I was able to calm down. But death is such a weird thing, because how does a person just cease to exist anymore?
When they've been there the whole time.
The entire time.
Yeah.
And then I get sad about forgetting him and what his voice sounds like, and thinking, oh, how would he have responded in this situation, and it's just so hard. So for you to go through that at 15 is insane, because I was an adult when that happened. And then you had to just go right back to school the next day?
So I think sometime between him shooting her and him killing himself, he got things together. Like, apparently he took his kids' money and put it in their car. Like, they didn't talk to him or anything, but he put money in their car, and he took our dog to the pound and like wrote a sign. It was like, I'm a good boy, I have my shots, and did all this stuff. And I'm not quite sure the timeline of everything because I don't feel like it was premeditated. It just, I don't know. It's a weird timeline.
Like we had talked about, he probably had an oh shit moment where he's
where he's like, oh shit, I did this.
Yeah.
And now I have to
deal with the consequences.
And
so there was a gap there.
I think so.
Did you hear from the police at all about? So they ruled it a suicide, homicide, or homicide.
Yeah, like a murder suicide.
Suicide.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised that he had time to do all that, because if he shot her, like that's a big noise.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised nobody heard it, nobody called.
Yeah, that is.
And he had time.
But
Can you imagine if you had been home, Michael?
No, it's very possible.
Yeah.
I would have been probably killed.
That is insane. That is actually crazy.
And I had left my retainer in my room that weekend, and my dad was like in my ass about me not having my retainer, and he very well could have been like, go get your retainer, and I'm driving you there right now, and I could have been the one that found everything.
That is actually insane.
So
you had an angel with
thankful
you.
that I didn't have to find it, see it,
right, or
breathe it.
The fact that you're here
and that I wasn't home.
Right. So
and that was like a good thing, because like that was a boundary I'd set for myself, because like I wanted to beat this guy up and kill him. Like at this point, I won't be home while you're home.
Right.
So, and that's go to my mom for being like, you might be home, and and that's her probably. She might have known more than I did when I talked to her.
Right.
I guarantee she did.
So there is speculation in your family about what happened that night. Like, is there people that feel like that's not actually what happened?
To me, it's like, so like both their phones were found in cups of water, and
yeah, but he could have done that.
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah, but
so people think it was a double suicide
or something like that, or I don't quite understand like how everyone feels about it, because I just see it for kind of how it looks, because it doesn't necessarily matter in the end. It's just kind of, they're both gone. How it happened, it matters, but
does it bother you that people have speculation about it?
No, it's like crime scene thing. Everyone's super interested, like, and are trying to put the story together, and it's a weird, like, all the things that happened in the time, and don't quite know. And I think so. He got dropped off at my mom's house because he went to dinner with his kids and his ex-wife that night.
Really?
Yeah, and he got dropped off, I think, like 8 or 9 or something like that. And so maybe he snuck in and gave his kids money then. Like, maybe it wasn't, like, maybe the dog was after, or like, but I think it had to have happened, like, in either that Friday night or early Saturday morning, like, 1, 2 a.m.
Right.
But
so what do you mean happened at 1, 2 a.m.? Because wouldn't you have been home by then, like before then? After
I was at my dad's.
Oh, you were at your dad's that night?
Yeah.
So when did you get the call that police were in front of the house?
Later, the next day in the afternoon.
Oh, the next day.
Yeah. So,
okay.
I'm not quite sure. Like,
so this had happened the night before your guitar performance.
Yeah, he had gotten dropped off from dinner, and yeah.
Do you know who ended up calling the police, or why?
His daughter.
And why?
Because there was money in her car, so she came over and no one was answering.
Oh. And so she didn't try to get in the house or anything?
She did. She found him.
Oh, she found him.
And so she came out screaming, crying.
Oh my God. So she saw your mom too?
No, she didn't see my mom. She had only seen him. She didn't do any other, because apparently he was in the kitchen and she was like in the doorway, so like of their room to the hallway. So like hallway, it was like a super skinny hallway with like a bathroom at the end, and like their room next to it.
So I mean, she has, I imagine, so much trauma.
Oh, I can't.
Do you ever talk to her, or do you guys talk about it?
No, they haven't really reached out, or I have ran into them at places, and it's like, hey,
yeah,
it's
right.
It's one of those things that I almost wish we would have gotten close, just because it's like we went through this terrible thing, and like we're on the same coin. Like you're just on the other side of dealing with it.
Right. Have you thought about reaching out?
I've talked to them.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't talked to his son, which I ran into him at a stoplight like years ago. And it was just like we just pointed at each other and that was it.
Yeah. Can I ask why or who do you in your family thinks that it was a double suicide and why?
I haven't really talked to them about what they think, honestly.
How?
We've talked about it, but they've kind of kept their own suspicions, I think, to themselves.
Yeah.
So
maybe because they're worried about how it might affect you.
Yeah, I don't.
I guess it doesn't matter, but I just feel like that's
there's just weird details that were left to be like, what? Like the phone's in the water and the I had a dream like years after that they faked their death and I ran into them at a baseball game.
That's crazy.
Together. And I was like, I woke up just mad. I was like, yeah. And like, there's also that thing too with my mom where it feels like she's going to come back because I lost her once and she came back.
Yeah. I didn't think about that. And
I still get that. Like I wake up and I think she's alive.
Yeah. So kind of going along those lines, how do you, what does a grieving process look like now that so many years have passed, or what are some things that you did? What were some of the hard days?
So from the original day, I skipped school on Monday, got my dog from the pound. We called it the pounds. And I went back to school like right away. I was like, just sitting in the house being upset. I can sit at school and be upset and just, it doesn't necessarily matter where I'm at. I'm going to be sad. So let's just get back into it. Because I think a lot of people expected me to be off school for 2 weeks. And so like that first day back at school, I was in marching band and my band director had told the band and was like, hey, this is what happened. If you see him upset, like take care of our person in band. Mm-hmm. And so I walked into school that day and just people were just hugging me, like, and it was a lot, like to know that it almost was like, this is real.
Yeah.
People know about it. It's real. Like, and people were so like surprised that I was at school already. I mean, because it's like, you just don't think you'd just go back to school right after that. But like I had one of my friends just saw me. He was like, oh my God, dude, just come here. And like, he hugged me and I was just like, I cried. It was like insane. Like I said, that was like very real. And so moving forward, like I had a meeting with all of my teachers and we talked like, how are we going to get through this together? And most of my teachers were like, whatever you need. I had one teacher that was a complete dick, but
there's always one.
Yeah. I was like, awesome, dude. Like, ride your high horse. I don't know.
Right.
But all my teachers were super cool. And I probably have like accumulatively missed, I would love the number. I'm sure it exists somewhere, but I probably missed like 2 weeks throughout the rest of the year. And this was like second semester. Mm-hmm. So I would like wake up in the morning and be like, I'm not feeling this. And I probably milked it a couple times of like, I don't want to go to school. But, it's like, is it milking it? No.
No, it's not milking it.
But I was just like, tried to be strong. That was the whole thing. It was like, let's just keep it going. Mm-hmm. And then like, we couldn't get into the house for a long time. And getting all my stuff back from that house was like a big, like, this stuff doesn't belong here. It's at my mom's house. But like that, it's a weird thing. Then my whole room from my mom's house is now sitting in our living room. And it's like,
right.
Wow. And I definitely like leaned on playing my guitar a lot because it was there. And it's like,
it was your guys' thing.
It was our thing. And yeah, so I definitely played a ton of music. I went back to my guitar lessons, and they had like done the whole room and like my favorite bands and like their lyrics and stuff. And they were like, that was really cool.
That is
just
cool.
Like really nice of them that they didn't have to do that. But moving forward, like there's definitely, you get a girlfriend, they don't get to meet your mom. You graduate, mom's not there. Go to college, no mom. And she was somebody that I would call at a certain time of day and be like, catch up. And so I always still find myself wanting to call somebody. There's somebody I can't call. And I always have that feeling of oh, I can't call my mom. I would love to just call her and talk to her. Mm-hmm. But there's definitely a lot of depression and sadness that comes from it. And deep inside, I want to believe that I'll see her again, but I don't know. I don't believe in anything too concrete that I will see her again.
Mm-hmm. Are you open to it?
I'm open to it, but I don't trust people that are too in on one thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just I know this is the way it goes. No, you don't.
Yeah.
Nobody does.
But you believe that there's a chance her soul could still be out there.
Yeah. And I've had a dream where I saw her and just really smiling at me, an intense I'm so proud of you dream. And I woke up and just cried. It was way too much for me.
Yeah.
But it's been tough, for sure.
Yeah.
It's been tough. But
do you still have bad days?
Here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Here and there. Usually the holidays, so it happened in January 25. Okay. And usually the holidays leading up to that and the month of January is all kind of blah for me.
Yeah.
It's
when is her birthday?
It is, I think it's April. I always forget. I'm so bad. I'm such a terrible son.
She's turning in her grave right now.
Yeah, I know.
Is that month hard for you too for her birthday?
No. It's generally that time because it's the weather. It's
that's a hard
it's
time. It's
brings
year.
Everything. It's all reminders and recently opening for Jason Mraz. That was terrible. Having her not be there was hard. Mm-hmm. You're she only heard me sing once or twice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another reason I sang at her memorial. There's a Imagine Dragons song called 30 Lives. It's I'd just seen them and that song really spoke to me. And then because it's about somebody dying of cancer. Mm-hmm. But it just it's the loss in the song. It just really spoke to me. So I performed that song at her memorial.
Mm-hmm. So music has been a
total comfy little bed I get to lay in and feel okay.
And you've turned it into this amazing thing. How has your mom inspired your music?
So I have the song, the 2014 song, and I feel she taught me how to do it, for the most part, and a lot of my I play the guitar the same way she does. Sometimes I hear my own voice and I'm oh, I've heard her sing and it sounds like that. Or
mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where it's I'm doing it for her in a weird way. Sometimes mm-hmm. It feels that way. It's I gotta, keep doing it.
Yeah. Do you feel she's with you when you perform? And
sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a medium at Jason Mraz that contacted the Heather Collins and she was I saw a third person on stage, and so she claims to have possibly seen my mom.
That's crazy.
Which I'm that's crazy.
Do you buy into that stuff?
You know what? I'm skeptical, but
which is fair.
I appreciate the sentiment and
mm-hmm.
the fact that somebody said it. It still means it's still cool. It still means something that she felt compelled enough to reach out and.
Mm-hmm. I'm skeptical too, but there's a certain degree of things that I believe in, and I do believe that people still exist after they pass away, and that there's people that can tap into that. So when things like that happen, I feel I hear that and I think of your mom. That's your mom's way of saying I was with you. Mm-hmm. Because that's kind of weird that there was a medium there that reached out, went out of her way. You know what I mean? So, to each their own. But, I like to think that your mom hears your songs, sees what you're doing, supports you.
Yeah.
And is there with you, what kind of advice would you give to someone who is going through some kind of traumatic event like this? It doesn't have to be exactly what you went through, but whether it's, the loss of a loved one or something traumatic very early on that, because like I was saying at the beginning, there's not a lot of people, I want to give you your flowers, there's not a lot of people that can do what you're doing, which I've said this to you before in private, but when people go through something like that or anything traumatic, it's easy to like throw in the towel, wave the white flag and say, the world is fucked up. The world is a terrible place. The world is working against me. I'm scared of the world, and I completely understand why people do that.
Well, I still feel that way.
Right, but you carry it so well.
Yeah.
And if no one's told you, I want to tell you because you carry it well. And it doesn't mean that it's not hard. Like, no. I'm sure people don't see you at your worst moments. I completely understand that. And I know that you make it look good when it's far from it.
Mm-hmm.
But you keep on keeping on, and you're pursuing a passion, you're pursuing a dream, you're not giving up, and you've turned something horrible that's happened to you into a creative force to inspire others and connect with other people. And I think that that's what makes you unique as an artist and special as an artist, because there's a lot of people out there that are chasing it for the fame or for the money or for the clout or because, for whatever reason, egotistical, superficial reasons. And you're doing it for the pure joy of music and because you care about your mom. And I'm impressed by you. I just want you to know.
Thank you.
So what kind of advice would you give to somebody to be able to do what you're doing, to carry on, and even if it's heavy?
Definitely take the time to feel sad when it needs to, don't let it take what's important in your life away, because we got to keep going. Like, world turns, it spins, sun rises, but it's okay to have bad days, but it's cooler to have good days, right? Like, it's just better. Mm-hmm. So even if you're having a bad day, getting out of your space and trying is winning, if that makes sense. Like, just trying is winning.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of cool to be like, well, this terrible thing happened to me, but like, I'm at school on Tuesday. And it's almost like a screw you to the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't subscribe to this terrible thing that happened. Like, I don't need to be ruled by it. It's a weird, like, rebellious kind of attitude I think I have towards it, of like, everyone would think this, but no, like, I'm gonna do me. Like, that's just, I don't know. It was definitely like a weird, like, in spite of him doing that, and like knowing my mom would want me to succeed and play my guitar and accomplish the things I've accomplished. But it's definitely like a total screw you to like the thing. And it's like the whole, that it's like a moral thing where it's like the twin brothers and they both have an abusive father or something like that. And one of them is a CEO and the other one gets homeless. It's like, you can see those roads. They're not hard to see. Like, I could do this, and this and be homeless. And if I just try, I will, overcome this terrible thing that happened to me.
Right.
And it's hard. It's so hard. But yeah, you gotta make something out of life that isn't that.
Yeah.
Like, your life wasn't about that before, so why should it change?
Yeah. It's just putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, day by day, and remembering the people you lose when you want to, and feeling the feelings you need to, and wiping your tears and doing your thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whatever that is.
Yeah. Just
double down on you at the end of the day. Like, no matter what happens to you, like, you have to be yourself and try to let your light kind of shine.
Right. Well, I appreciate you being vulnerable about it, because that's a whole other thing. It's one thing to process it and feel it and acknowledge it and grieve it and heal, but then it's a whole other thing to be able to share it with the world, which is, again, there's very few people who can do it. So I appreciate you coming on and opening up and sharing your story with everybody.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you wanted to add or go over that I haven't already covered? When's your next show?
My next show is October 5th at the Space.
Okay, that's the date, the official date?
Yeah, or October 4th. It's a Wednesday.
Okay.
I think it's, yeah.
Well, we can confirm it.
Yeah, we can confirm it. But yeah, I guess just thanks for having me on. I've always wanted to tell my story. What's one of those things that feels like a burden to carry it without being able to express how I feel. And that's why I wrote that song. So it's like, because it's such a important like moment in my life that's shaped me and changed me, and it feels good to be able to tell people it, even though I'm not completely well versed in it.
Yeah.
But yeah. So thanks for having me.
It's made you who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, that's all I have for you. Again, thank you for being open about what has to be the hardest thing you've ever gone through. I'm sure that there's plenty of people that are going to be able to connect and relate. Like I said at the beginning of the episode, I'll have all of Michael's information, including his music, his website that has his performance dates on there if you guys want to check it out. And then I will see you guys all in 2 weeks so we can talk some more elephants. Thank you.